back. Next time.
Profesjonalna sztuka.
Okay, white side, let's learn a little bit. We're in the midst of this Mishnah that deals with items that are prohibited from dealing with it commercially. Now, it brought down two different types of circumstances in this Mishnah. One, the reason why you can't deal with it commercially because it has kedusha, be it the rice of the rabbanon. Then there are things that you can't deal with commercially because you can't eat it. And mistakenly, maybe people will think that since you deal with it, it's allowed to be eaten. And there's a question whether it's a din rice or a din rabbanon. So with two parts of the Mishnah now, interestingly enough. Part one about kedusha, like Sheviis, Trumas and Maasros, Bikurim and Trumas. Now, then there was different things that are prohibited, like Nevela, Treifa, Shkotzim, Uramosim. And now we go back to Sheviis, which was the original, we're holding a middle Masech to Sheviis. So it delves into the prohibition of commercially dealing with Sheviis. So the Mishnah has an interesting lashon, which we were in the midst of explaining at the end of yesterday. You shouldn't buy the yaakov sodim sold in the shuk. Now, there's a question over here in the Rishonim, what it means lekeach yaakos u'moicha bashuk. So we saw yesterday one Pirish. I'm going to go now into the Siyata D'Shmaya because he also brings it down nicely. Because lekeach means to buy. When you're lekeach, there's a moicha and there's a lekeach. To sell and to buy. So it says you shouldn't buy. So simply said, you would say it means you can't go ahead and invest just in case cheaply to buy at a profit. But he brings down from many Rishonim that hold over here means like it min hefka. Even if it's from hefka, where technically there's no problem from going ahead and harvesting Sheviis from hefka. And then you want to sell in the shuk, because this is an issa, like he says, chari b'shvius. Shaloike d'meicha. Others want to say, we saw yesterday, that it means that you're not allowed to buy on speculation. Not that you're going to harvest it, but even for speculation. However, the Mishnah makes a profound statement now. Abahu like it, ubenai moichal yoda. If you want, it now says lashon of lakita. Before it was lashon mechira. We said it might mean lakita. But let's say you yourself want to go and harvest, and then you're going to send your little boy out to sell it. Is it allowed? So it says it is allowed. So let's see how he explains it. Adam lilkot yirakos shel shviyos v'likel l'bnashim k'mavurei. And then give it to your son and say, son, you want to go ahead and sell it, you can sell it. Kirak lilka kidei limka ba'atzmai neshef there is chayra. What's called chayra? When you go ahead and you buy and sell. That's called merchandise. But let's say you're not the only one involved here. You go ahead and buy it. And then you say, son, do as you please, and he goes and sells it. No problem. Now, it comes out from over here that doesn't make sense. How does this work? Why should it be allowed? So, he brings down over here. Because what's the difference if it's you or your son? At the end of the day, if you can't do schayra, so then you give it to your son to do schayra? What does that add to it? That now we say mutalach, mutalach, mutalach over here. What's going on? So he says, Meloshin harav harosh mash mishigam kishaloikit meichabatzma ein schayra gemur. If you do it on your own accord and it's hefka, you did everything according to the letter of the law to let it grow in the proper circumstances. This is not called schayra gemura. Elanira kischayra. It looks like schayra. Once you have somebody else involved, we say it doesn't look like merchandise. Because usually when you go ahead and you gather or you go and buy, you go and sell afterwards, like on speculation. Over here, since it's a two-step process, that there are two individuals involved, that's not the normal fashion of doing business. The Rash does not learn that way. That's how the Rav and the Rosh learn. The Rash learns that if you go do it yourself, halachically it's not allowed. It's not al smaris ayin, like we explained during Sheviis. There's a lot of times there's a halacha of maris ayin that people will give you a mistake. Okay, this is all fine and well, but still at the end of the day, we need a solid reason here. What's going on over here? That we say two people it's allowed. So he says, because of a chazanish, sheheta limko al yidei shliach urak, kishaloikit min ahefke umoich. This is only if it really wasn't. It wasn't a situation like we said before that you went and you took it from hefke, so everything was done kedasu kedit. But let's say you're doing it with speculation, that you buy and you sell, you buy and you sell. That's already real. It really looks like merchandise, speculation, and also limka filahi de shliach will be prohibited even through a shliach. Now, there's one thing over here that's interesting. We say that there's a big chiddush here. That over here, when we say you can sell, even if it's your own son, where you would say, your son is like, it's a family business over here, that it's like you. We go even that far. Normally you would say, what's the difference, him or his son? Over here we give that heter. Not everybody, it all depends what type of a son it is also. Is it under his jurisdiction or not under his jurisdiction? Like we say, a godel hasoymech al shulchan aviv nikra cotton, and a cotton she'ein hasoymech al shulchan aviv nikra godel. There has to be a certain sense of independency, otherwise it's you. Now he gives it one extra piece to this puzzle. But let's say lokach la'atzmai. When you bought, you bought it or you picked it, meaning you harvested it, and you did it for your own personal usage. You had to make a big supper, and you need a lot of vegetables, and afterwards the banquet got canceled, or you had a lot left over, then also, mutal moichem, you can sell it. Now, why is that? So he brings down over here. Okay, I'm not going to go into that. Okay, we went through that yesterday. What is the meaning of this? You went and you gathered vegetation in order to eat it. Cook it up and eat it for your family, for your personal needs. And now, there's plenty left over. It's allowed to sell not only through a shliach, an agent call it, but you can do it yourself. Because since your original intention was not to sell it, that's how the Rav and the Rash and the Rosh learn. Now, this is all very well and good. That when we say shalokach, because we already had before, there's a whole question what lokeach means. So over here we're translating it that lokeach means to harvest. Normally it means to buy. However, and therefore, so it means over here that we are being mefarish that when it says lokach, it means to gather. And the Tan is teaching us that even though normally we say it's prohibited to harvest in order to sell for commercial purposes, if you gathered it for your own personal needs, you can sell it. However, there are those that say, when they say Lakita, as we mentioned previously, it doesn't mean actual Lakita. Of course it means Lakita as well. But the same thing would be if, let's say, you buy it, meaning, how did you buy it? You're not allowed to buy it, just like if they evil because the guy who sold it to you, so the guy who sold it to you had permission to sell because he needed it for his thing. And then he got stuck and he decided to sell it to you. And then you bought a tons from him, what he had, and you got stuck. You can go ahead and sell it. So basically what we're saying over here is that there's a very fine line to what's called merchandise. We know that you're not allowed to do schayr with Sheviis. And there are guidelines what schayr is. We said, because we learned that there's a Kedusha Sheviis, and Kedusha Sheviis has different ramifications. You're not allowed to enclose your field in order not to let people in. The same vein, you're not allowed to keep it for an extended period of time if you can't no longer find it in the field. This din of schar b'shvius is much more subtle. It's not so simple. Whether it's when it's a din deraisa and when it's a din derabbanan. That's why over here you have in the Rishonim different ways of understanding and interpreting it, and it's what quote unquote a very gray area. How it works, and it all depends on the Rishonim. Because we deal with Lakita, Lachira, we deal with yourself, Ayadei B'nai. So you have a whole bunch of different items over here that you have to take into consideration, and therefore it's much more quote unquote convoluted. That ends this Mishnah. We're going to start now Mishnah Dalet. Now, as we mentioned, we said that you're not allowed to do merchandise with certain types of items. How do you call merchandise? Speculate. You're not allowed to speculate. You know what speculation is? You buy cheap, sell, buy low,
invest,
buy high. What?
Invest,
whatever. We're not in the stock market here.
Schoira.
Yeah. Now, we also had other cases that we spoke about in the Mishnah that we said goes under the category you're not allowed to do schoira. Bechor, you're not allowed to deal with schoira with a bechor, even if it has a defect, let alone if it doesn't have a defect. And also, Balachayim Hatmei, things that are not kosher, you can't eat. So now the Mishnah is going to go in to what goes under the categories of schoira for these type of items, which has nothing to do with Kedusha of Sheviis. But technically, we're going off on a tangent. So the Mishnah says, let's say you bought a bechor. We're talking, of course, about a bechor balmum. And we know a bechor balmum goes out to chulin, but even though it goes out to chulin technically, it still belongs to the kohen. The kohen, if he wants, he can do what he wants with it. So the question is, what connotations are there that you can't use it with schoira? So the Mishnah says that the halacha is that if you bought a bechor for your Mishnah B'nai or for Regel, meaning for Yom Tif, even if you're not a kohen, technically you can eat it. However, and therefore, v'nisha b'ma'ishal kohen, u'mutar l'Yisrael l'knaisim ha'kohen k'dei lo yichloi. The kohen cannot sell it to you. Meaning, he needs to get rid of it. No, he's not doing it as merchandise. He's doing it because he wants to sell it. He doesn't need to have so many bechorim under his jurisdiction. Now, let's just go over some items here to recall what the situation of a bechor is. This is the bechor. Kemuva Mishnah Kedemis is manazeh nowadays, meaning she'ein beis hamikdash kayin. There's no longer a beis hamikdash. Technically, if you have a Bechor Tam, you can buy it. Because at the end of the day, you can't bring it to be sacrificed in the Beis Hamikdash. Like that, because we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. So if you get such a Bechor that doesn't have a defect, you can't just say, okay, let's go shecht it and eat it. Because right now, it has a certain Kedusha Saguf. Because he can go ahead and bring it on the Mizbeach if there was a Mizbeach. So what we do is we tell this buyer who buys this Bechor to be able to eat, you're going to have to wait around until it gets a defect. And then you can use it for your personal needs. And we said, this was stated before, that this halacha you can't use it for merchandise, for speculation, is not only a circumstance for a bechor of a balmul, but a bechor tam. That if you're stuck with it, for whatever reason it is, you can sell it. Now, technically, the way all these Mefarshim and Rishonim explain this part of the Mishnah is we're talking about a Bechor Balmul and not a Tam. Why? Because if it's talking about a Bechor Tam, you're buying it for a wedding, for a banquet by your wedding, or to eat in your house over Yom Tiv. It seems you were talking about a circumstance where you want to eat it right away. You're going to have to wait around. So therefore, when they go and they explain this Mishnah, they're explaining it's a normal case where you already have a Bechor Balmul. But technically, these halachas apply not only for a Bechor Balmul, that it has a defect, even if it doesn't have a defect. And technically, right now, it's perfect, and if we had a Beis HaMikdash, you would be able to take it to the Beis HaMikdash and shecht it as a Bechor and eat it. The Kohen can have it and eat it. Over here, it doesn't work that way, because it's a Bechor Balmul. So the halacha is that if you have leftovers on this, even though we said before you can't use it as speculation, but you bought it for a purpose and then you see that purpose is not being filled, like tzarach, loy, and if you don't need it, motul l'maychroi. You can sell it, because we don't say, okay, you're stuck with it, you're not allowed to sell it. Of course you're allowed to sell it. And you can sell it. You can go ahead and sell it to whoever you want. And what's the chiddush here? Af shenira hadova b'schoira shereikana b'chor machri lacherim. Because you're Yisrael. How did you get this b'chor? You bought it from a kohen. So technically, people are going to look, it's Marasayan. We always said there's a problem of Marasayan. So over here, you bought and you sold. Since at the outset, when you went and bought it, you had no intention to use it for commercial purposes, you only bought it for your own personal needs, but you had extra. We gave a head there, like we have another, we gave a loophole. So over here, these Mishnayos are dealing with loopholes. And they say this is also another loophole. It's not a loophole because it wasn't intentional, but at the end of the day, we don't consider it chayra. So we're going to go Metshavita to go and narrow what we call chayra, because chayra can mean a very wide avenue, and we're going to go ahead and narrow it down. Chanayim and Akasha was both like Israel, Vikrim, Mitzvahs. Shenemar, Adoin, Chofetz, Lamatzitko,